My sister-in-law slapped me across the face in front of my daughters. And that was the day 17 years of biting my tongue finally ran out. What she never understood was just how much that silence had been costing her. Welcome to Dad's raw revenge. Settle in. Because everyone in this story had 100 chances to do the right thing. They passed on every single one. Tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this. But I can't start with the slap. If I do, you'll miss the 17 years that made it land the way it did. I'm Kyle Weber, 49, and I live in Steiner Ranch, on the northwest side of Austin. I run an IT compliance firm out on Research Boulevard, 11 employees, 3 anchor corporate contracts, and a reputation I spent 15 years building out of literally nothing. On Saturday mornings you'll find me on the sideline coaching my youngest soccer team. By any measure that matters, I've built a good life, and the center of it, the reason any of it means anything, is Alana. Alana Weber, 43, the kind of sharp where you don't see the joke coming until it's already landed. She laughs with her entire body and makes a beef brisket taco that should honestly be illegal. 17 years married. And I don't mean 17 years of coexisting in the same house, I mean still, genuinely, almost embarrassingly in love. The kind that makes our friends groan when we walk in the room together. Then there's Alexa, 12, precise and serious and always ready to correct my grammar. And Keisha, 9, a hurricane in pigtails and easily the funniest person I've ever met. We adopted both girls together after 5 years of trying every other road first. Alana has a condition that took pregnancy off the table. We mourned that quietly, and then we made a choice. We chose our daughters. On purpose. And I choose them on purpose every day since. Keep that in mind, because it matters for everything that comes after. Now, Alice Hamilton, Alana's older sister. 46, out in Avery Ranch, raising 3 boys who keep her running. The 2 older ones, Jackson and Marcus, are already through high school. The youngest, Tom, is 13. Alice is married to Ray, who used to be the family's golden boy, flashy cars, a commercial real estate career that was going great, and an ego that filled every room he walked into. Then, about 3 years back, a compliance scandal at his firm cost him his job and quietly shut every door the industry had. Since then he's been scraping by on freelance commissions, radiating the specific anxiety of a man who peaked a while ago and is trying hard not to let anyone notice. And Alice has never once liked me, not from day one. When Alana and I met, I was 32 and broke in that particular humiliating way, not homeless. Just the guy who has to let his girlfriend cover dinner. Building a business on credit cards and pure stubbornness. Alana, meanwhile, had a steady job, her own apartment, and a family that decided I wasn't good enough for her before I'd said a single word. Alice ran that jury. She never came out and said it. Women like Alice never do. It lived in the way she looked past me at dinners, the way she talked to Alana as though I weren't sitting right there. The innocent questions that were really just knives. So, Kyle, is the business still struggling? Delivered with a smile that made you feel like you owed her a thank you for the insult. I decided early on that I wasn't going to fight her for it. I wasn't going to hand her a scene to enjoy. I loved Alana too much to force her to pick a side between family peace and her husband's ego. So I stepped back. Way back. Pleasant at gatherings. Present but never in Alice's orbit. Letting Alana run her own family relationships. Mostly, it worked. What Alice never bothered to learn, because she'd already filed me under nobody, was that the business took off. Not just fine, genuinely thriving. While she was still treating me like some charity case her sister had brought home, I was closing contracts that would have made her blink twice. So when Alice and Ray hit a rough patch, a mortgage they couldn't cover, Tom's private school tuition spiraling, naturally they went to Alana. And Alana came to me. I know it's a lot, baby, can you just take care of it? And I told her, pull it from our account, send it over, keep the peace. I know how that sounds. I knew it then, too. Alana would hand her sister money from a joint account Alice assumed was mostly Alana's, and I let that assumption sit there undisturbed. It was simpler than the conversation we'd have had otherwise. So Alice kept thinking her little sister was bankrolling her, and kept thinking Alana's husband was just some quiet guy who tagged along to holidays. That went on for years, mortgage gaps, tuition installments, the occasional emergency Ray would call Alana about directly. Never me, never Kyle, because in Alice's world, I was furniture, expensive furniture, as it turned out, but furniture all the same. The Sunday it all cracked open started like any June Sunday in Austin, hot and loud before 10 in the morning. The barbecue was at their mother's place in Round Rock, a big old house with a huge backyard and a good covered patio, packed with extended family, aunts, uncles, longtime friends. Brisket and jalapeno sausage smoke hit us before we'd even climbed out of the truck. Someone had a speaker going, kids everywhere. I was in a great mood, I'd just closed a solid contract. The girls had been wonderful all morning, and Alana had on this yellow sundress that made me feel 32 again, minus the broke part. I had no reason to expect anything but an ordinary Sunday. I grabbed a plate of sausage links and wandered toward the back, where a few of the guys were debating the Cowboys' chances that season. I had opinions. I gave them. Life was good. I never noticed Alice watching me from across the yard. I noticed Keisha first. She came running around the side of the house. And before she even reached me I knew something had gone wrong. 9-year-old girls sprinting toward their dads at a family cookout are either bursting with news or something's badly wrong. And her face told me it wasn't the good kind. Not the loud, dramatic crying either, the quiet kind kids do when something's actually landed on them. That kind is worse. I set my plate down and pulled her in. Hey, what happened? It took a minute to get the story out of her. Tom had stood right in front of Alexa and 2 cousins and said, clear as anything, you're just charity cases. My mom said your real parents didn't want you. You don't even belong in this family. Something shifted in my chest, and I want to be exact about what it was, because it wasn't simple anger. It was colder than that, quieter. It was the feeling of a man who'd swallowed 1,000 small insults for 17 years, now watching those same insults land on his 9-year-old. I kissed her forehead, told her to stay with her mom, and walked over to where Tom stood with a couple of other kids by the fence. No yelling, no grabbing. I put an arm around Keisha, who'd followed me anyway, and rested a calm hand on Tom's shoulder so he'd look at me instead of his friends. Hey, look at me. He looked up. These girls carry my name. They belong here just as much as anyone. Don't you ever say that again. That was it. That was the whole thing. I have no idea what Alice thought she saw from across that yard. What story assembled itself in her head in the 3 seconds between spotting us and reaching us. But whatever it was, it took the entire backyard from loud to dead silent in under 2 seconds. She yanked Tom away from me hard enough that he stumbled, then spun and slapped me, open-handed, hard enough that I heard the crack before I felt the sting. The whole yard froze. Don't you dare touch my son, you pathetic loser. Her voice wasn't shaking from fear, it was fury. You're not even a real father. You only adopted them because you couldn't give my sister a real family. I put a hand to my cheek. Before the sting even fully registered, Alana was already moving, no hesitation, straight into the space between us, pale with shock and rage, pushing past her own sister. Alice, what is wrong with you? She shouted, voice trembling but unmistakably fierce. In front of my children? Alice didn't even glance at her. Her eyes stayed locked on me. I took a breath, gently guided Alana behind me, and looked at Alice. You have 10 seconds to get out of my sight, I said, dead calm, before I call the police and have them walk you off your mother's property in handcuffs. That's when Ray showed up, beer in hand, planting himself between us like a human shield, chest puffed out. Whoa, Kyle, relax, man. She's just a protective mom. You grabbed our kid first. Don't turn this into a whole thing, don't be dramatic about it. I looked at him for a long moment. The speaker was still playing somewhere. A kid laughed at something on the far side of the yard, blissfully unaware. I smiled. Since you brought it up, I said quietly, let's actually talk about what a real father does. I turned to the girls. Get your things. Alana was already at my side. Stay right here. Because what unfolded over the next 2 weeks is exactly when Alice Hamilton's version of reality started to collapse. Some people don't realize they've been living off borrowed grace until the day it runs out. And by then, the bill's already due. We drove out of that Round Rock driveway in total silence, not the tense, angry kind, but the kind that settles over a family that just took a hit and needs a minute before it can even talk about it. Alexa stared out the window in the back seat. Keisha had her head on her sister's shoulder. Eyes shut, Alana sat up front, hands folded in her lap, unnervingly still, the way she gets when a feeling's too big to put into words yet. I kept both hands on the wheel, headed south on 183 toward home, the Austin skyline glowing purple and gold in the distance, utterly indifferent to the fact that my face was still stinging. I didn't say a word about what came next, not yet. At home, I grilled up chicken fajitas, because life doesn't pause just because your sister-in-law lost her mind at a cookout, and 9 and 12-year-olds still need dinner. Keisha ate like nothing had happened, she was 9, and fajitas are fajitas. Alexa stayed quiet, which meant she was working through it in her own way. Once the girls were down, Alana found me in the kitchen, leaning on the counter, reading me the way she always can. "You okay?" "I'm fine, Kyle." "Alana, I'm fine, I promise." A pause. Then, "I'm so sorry. I should have said more. I should have. You didn't do anything wrong. It's not okay." Her voice cracked. "She said that in front of our girls. She called you, said you weren't even a real." She couldn't finish it. I crossed the kitchen and just held her. Then I went to my office, opened the laptop, and pulled up the bank portal, and I want to be precise about what that was, because it wasn't a tantrum and it wasn't rage. It was a decision made by a man who just watched his 9-year-old cry over words that came straight out of his sister-in-law's mouth, words Tom didn't invent, words he'd clearly heard at home. I found every recurring transfer tied to Alice and Ray, the mortgage help, Tom's tuition payments out in Cedar Park, the emergencies that had stopped being occasional about 2 years back. I canceled every one of them, all gone. I shut the laptop and slept better than I had in months. Week 1, radio silence from their side, no calls, no texts. I figured Alice was too proud to reach out and too angry to think clearly, and that Ray was telling her it'd blow over, that I'd cool off, that Alana would smooth it over like she always did. I went about my life, work, Keisha's Saturday practice out on Quinlan Park Road, a trip to book people with Alexa for a book she'd been chasing for weeks, a 5-hour brisket smoke on Sunday during which I did not think about Alice Hamilton a single time. Week 2, the dominoes started tipping, Alana's phone started buzzing, texts, then calls that ran longer each time, her jaw tightening a little more with every one. I didn't push for details, I figured she'd talk when she was ready. She came home one Tuesday from lunch on South Congress with a look on her face I hadn't seen in years. Not sad, not angry, done. Alice was there, she said, dropping her keys on the counter. At the restaurant, showed up unannounced, just sat down across from me. I waited. She cornered me, went on for 10 minutes about how childish you're being, how you're punishing the whole family over what she called, Alana's jaw tightened, a little family argument. A little family argument. The woman assaulted me in front of 30 people and a half-dozen kids. And that's what she called it. Apparently the mortgage is late. The school sent a final notice on Tom's tuition, and Ray's telling her it's her fault for setting them up to fail. Alana looked at me. She asked me why I was letting my deadbeat husband ruin their lives. The kitchen went quiet. What did you tell her? Something moved across Alana's face, 17 years of patience finally hitting its limit. Like a dam that had held far more than it was built for and just let go. I told her the truth. All of it. Her eyes were steady. No tears. Just clarity. All of it. She needed to hear it. I'm done shielding her from it. That evening, out on the back porch with 2 glasses of sweet tea we never touched, Alana walked me through the whole conversation. Once Alice finished her routine at that cafe table, the sighing, the guilt trips, the dramatic pauses, the "don't you care about family," Alana had looked her dead in the eye and said, "It was never my money, Alice." Alice blinked. "What?" "Every dollar that kept your lights on, paid Tom's tuition, covered your mortgage, that was Kyle's, not mine, his. He told me to let you believe it was me. He didn't want the drama. He was protecting me from having to deal with how you'd react to the truth." Silence. "The husband you called a loser in front of his own kids has been quietly funding your entire life while you look down on him, while your son repeated whatever he hears at your dinner table straight to our daughters' faces. That man was the one paying for everything." Alice tried to speak. Alana didn't let her. "And since we're on the subject of real fathers, you want to go there? I can't have children. My body, my condition, my limitation." Kyle let this whole family assume for 10 years that it was his issue. Because he knew exactly how you treat me if you knew the truth. He protected my dignity from people exactly like you. He never said a word. Not once. To anyone. He is twice the man your husband will ever be. When Alana got to that part, she stopped talking for a second. And so did I. I looked out at the yard where the girls had been running around earlier and felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction. Not vindication. Just the quiet weight of being truly seen by someone. Of hearing your wife tell the people who dismissed you, in no uncertain terms, that they never actually knew you at all. Was she crying? I asked eventually. By the end, Alana sipped her tea. I didn't stick around to watch. We sat there a while as the neighbor's dog barked at nothing and Keisha's abandoned soccer ball sat in the grass. Ordinary life going on around us. What Alana didn't know yet, because I hadn't told her, was that the same day she'd had that conversation, I'd made 2 phone calls of my own. The first was to my attorney, Renee, who's handled my business contracts for 8 years and has a voice that puts insurance adjusters on edge. I told her what happened at the barbecue, told her 3 longtime family friends had already agreed, sober and willing, to give written statements. I told her to move forward. She didn't hesitate. I'll be in touch with the DA's office today. The second call went to the bank. 2 years earlier, when Ray and Alice needed a mortgage modification, the lender required a co-signer. And, say it with me, I loved my wife and wanted to keep the peace. So I signed. Well, peace was officially cancelled. I called the lender and explained that Ray had concealed his job loss from them during that restructuring, using my credit as cover the whole time. As a co-signer, I formally reported the concealed material change in the borrower's employment status and handed their fraud and risk team a stack of documentation. The rep on the other end went very quiet, just facts. Process. Timeline. The modification would default by Monday. Same on my end. Facts. Process. Timeline. Nothing more. I hung up, went back to finishing a compliance report for Thursday's client presentation, because I don't let personal matters bleed into professional ones. A discipline I built back when I was 32, broke, and everyone was waiting to watch me fail. I didn't fail then. I wasn't about to start now. If you've been with this channel a while, drop a comment, hit like, subscribe, you know the drill. Here's the thing about those 2 weeks after the barbecue, none of it was loud. No confrontations, no late-night texts, no showing up anywhere uninvited. I went to work. I came home. I helped with homework. Cheered from the sideline at soccer, cooked dinner most nights because I actually enjoy it and Alana works hard. Life looked completely normal on the surface. Underneath it, though, every move I made was flowing the way water does, quiet, steady, and absolutely certain of where it was headed. Alice and Ray had no idea yet. Then Ray called. Thursday evening, I was out in the driveway cleaning the truck when my phone buzzed with a number I recognized. I almost let it go. Then figured, why not? Ray, Kyle, a pause, the pause of a man who'd rehearsed a speech and forgotten it the second it mattered. Hey, look, Alice and I were thinking we should all sit down, talk it out, somewhere neutral. Nice place. Our treat. Our treat. I nearly laughed out loud, standing there with a rag in my hand. Sure, Ray, let's sit down. He sounded relieved, which told me exactly what he thought this dinner was going to be. Great, man. Saturday work. There's a spot on 5th Street. Saturday's fine. Perfect. We'll book it. And hey, really looking forward to clearing the air. Okay, we're family. Family. I wiped down the hood of the truck. See you Saturday, Ray, I said, and hung up. I stood there in the warm evening a moment longer, sprinklers running somewhere, a car rolling past, a wind chime going. They thought they were walking into a negotiation. They had no idea they were walking into a closing statement. There's a specific stillness that comes over a man who's already made every decision that matters and is just waiting for everyone else to catch up. That's exactly where I was headed into Saturday. Ray had picked Oasis, up on the cliffs over Lake Travis, outdoor terraced seating with a view good enough to almost make bad company bearable. Almost. Classic pick for people hoping the scenery does the emotional work for them. I'd bet money Alice chose it. We got there first. Like always, I don't like walking into a room where everyone else is already comfortable. We took a table on the second terrace, ordered waters, and watched the sun start its slow drop over the lake, turning everything gold and copper. Alana had been quiet on the drive over, not the broken kind of quiet, the resolved kind. 2 weeks of processing the barbecue, the cafe showdown, 17 years before both, and she'd come out the other side with her jaw set in a way I recognized instantly. That was the look of a woman who'd made her decision. I took her hand across the table. She squeezed back without looking up from the menu. That was enough for me. Alice and Ray showed up 11 minutes late. Ray had on a button-down clearly ironed for the occasion. For Ray, that's basically a tuxedo. Alice had her hair done, clutching her purse in front of her with both hands like a shield. Rehearsed. Both of them, you could see it in the too careful way they carried themselves. Ray went for the handshake first, firm, 2 pumps, full eye contact. Kyle, good to see you, man. Then to Alana, Alana. She gave him one nod. The temperature at the table dropped noticeably. Alice sat across from me with the smile of someone who needs something and resents you for it. Kyle, Alice. We ordered. The waiter had no idea he was serving what amounted to a sentencing hearing with a nice view. Ray got a beer. Alice. White wine. Alana. Salmon. I got the tenderloin, genuinely hungry, and I saw no reason to let the occasion ruin a good meal. About 4 minutes of small talk about weather and traffic, and then Ray cleared his throat, leaned in, hands folded, the picture of sincerity. Look, man, things got heated that Sunday. Alice shouldn't have, what happened shouldn't have happened, and we're sorry about that. A glance at Alice, who nodded on cue, but you have to understand, she was stressed. She saw you grab Tom's arm and reacted. She's a mother. A beat. And honestly, cutting off the kid's tuition over one argument, that feels pretty extreme, kind of like you're punishing the whole family because you got your pride hurt. Another pause, and then the line he'd clearly been saving, almost feels like you set us up to look bad. He sat back. Alice nodded along, turning her wine glass slowly by the stem. There it was, the full sequence, half an apology, a pivot to justification, and a landing on the idea that I was somehow the real problem. Textbook. I let the silence stretch, took a slow sip of water, set it back exactly where it had been, then smiled, the same smile from the backyard in Round Rock. Ray, my voice stayed level, you didn't bring me here to apologize. What? No, man, we genuinely. You brought me here because your mortgage is due. I kept my eyes on him. You're not sorry Alice hit me. You're sorry I'm the one holding the checkbook. Dead quiet at our table. The table next to us burst out laughing about something, a birthday, balloons, an entirely different universe from ours. Alice's glass stopped turning. Now hold on, Ray started. I'm not finished. Quiet. No heat. No edge. Just fact. And Ray, whether out of respect or self-preservation, actually stopped talking. I looked at Alice, directly, for the first time in 17 years without stepping back, without managing the room, without protecting anyone's comfort but my own. You stood in front of 30 people, including my daughters, and told me I wasn't a real father, that I gave those girls a charity home because I couldn't give your sister a real one. I paused. I want us on the same page about that before I keep going. Alice opened her mouth. Don't. Alana said, one word. Quiet as a door closing. Alice shut her mouth. For 17 years you believed I was nobody. That Alana carried this family alone. That I was furniture that came attached to your sister. I tilted my head. I let you believe that. That's on me. I thought I was keeping the peace. What I was actually doing was funding a version of reality that worked for you and erased me completely. That's over as of tonight. Ray shifted. The rehearsed calm starting to slip. The police report's already filed. I said. His beer stopped halfway to his mouth. The DA's office is reviewing it. Assault. Ray. Not a family dispute. Not a heated moment, a crime. Regardless of what story Alice tells herself about it. I folded my hands. 3 longtime friends who were standing right there have already given written statements. 2 more relatives have confirmed the sequence of events. What I don't have is any interest in calling this a misunderstanding. Alice went pale as the tablecloth. Kyle, her voice had lost every trace of the rehearsed calm from earlier. Smaller now. Real. I know I went too far. I know that. But criminal charges? We're family. You told my 9-year-old her real parents didn't want her. I said. Steady. Unflinching. You said that to a child. Through your own son. Then you crossed a yard and hit me in front of her. I let it sit. This isn't about family politics anymore, Alice. The light over the lake was gorgeous. A boat drifted somewhere far below. Ray set his beer down. Okay, I hear you. The charges. That's serious. But, let's talk finances. The mortgage. Tom's school. Those are real consequences for a kid who didn't do anything. Tom repeated what he hears at home. I said, those consequences are yours and Alice's. I reached into my jacket, pulled out a folded document, and slid it across the table. That's formal notification from my attorney. You concealed your job loss from the lender during the restructuring. Ray, that's bank fraud. I reported it to their risk department last Tuesday. My name's cleared from the liability. And the bank's already revoked your modified terms. The acceleration notice is coming separately, if it hasn't already. Ray unfolded it with unsteady hands, and I watched the color drain out of his face in real time. Foreclosure starts whenever the bank decides to start it. I said, that's between you and them now. I'm out of it. You can't. He looked up. We have a kid in that house. You have a kid in that house. I said, which is exactly what a real father thinks about before doing the damage, not after. That one landed. Alice made a sound that wasn't quite a word. Eyes glassy, wine untouched in front of her. The transfers are cancelled. The tuition help is cancelled. Every bit of it existed because I loved my wife enough to keep the peace at my own expense, and that only works if there's some baseline respect underneath it. I held her gaze. You wrecked that foundation in about 45 seconds at a backyard barbecue. Kyle, please. Her voice cracked open completely, every ounce of composure gone, and underneath it just a woman staring down consequences she never actually believed would show up. I'll apologize, publicly, however you want. I'll call the DA myself. Our house. Here's the part worth paying attention to, because what I felt in that moment wasn't triumph. It wasn't the hot satisfaction people expect. It was quieter, like a door finally closing on a room you've been stuck in far too long, and knowing you never have to walk back through it. I looked at her, really looked, and felt nothing that required cruelty. Everything that needed saying had already been said, calmly, with receipts. I stood, buttoned my jacket. I spent 17 years protecting your feelings. That's finished. From here on, I only protect my own family, my wife, and my daughters, who belong in every single room they walk into. I picked up my phone. Good luck with the bank, and good luck covering dinner. I held my hand out to Alana. She took it instantly, stood, gathered her purse, rose to her full height in that way she has when there's no doubt left in her at all. Alice grabbed for her arm. Alana, please, just. Alana looked at the hand on her arm, then at her sister. I love you, she said simply, but I'm done carrying what you refuse to own. We walked out through the restaurant, past a table of birthday balloons, past a cheerful waiter calling out, have a great night, into a warm Austin evening. The valet brought the truck around. I tipped him. We climbed in, and I pulled out toward the hill road. Alana was quiet for maybe 2 minutes. Then, good luck covering dinner. And she started laughing, not politely, but the real, full-body laugh I fell for 20 years ago in a coffee shop on 6th Street, when she was 23 and I was the broke guy at the next table asking to borrow her phone charger. I laughed too. We laughed for a solid mile before either of us said another word. Here's how it all shook out. The DA moved forward, and Alice took a plea, formal assault charge, community service, and a restraining order keeping her a set distance from me and the girls for 14 months. No trial, no spectacle, just paperwork and consequences. The bank started foreclosure 6 weeks after that dinner. Ray and Alice ended up in a smaller rental out in Pflugerville, 25 minutes east of where they'd been. Tom left private school for the local public one. From what Alana's heard secondhand, he's doing okay. About 3 months after the barbecue, Tom actually sent Alexa and Keisha a handwritten note. Alana showed it to me, nothing like his father's performance at that restaurant. No angle, no calculation, just the clumsy, sincere apology of a 13-year-old who'd actually had something get through to him. I kept that note. It reminded me the kid was never the villain here, just someone handed the wrong script by the adults around him, who maybe finally got handed a better one. I never once gloated, not to family, not on the phone, Not in a single text. That was never the point. This was never about breaking Alice, it was about making it stop. A month or so later, Keisha looked up from a school project at the kitchen table and asked, out of nowhere, "Daddy, are we a real family?" I set down the glue stick. "Come here." She climbed into my lap, still small enough for that. At 9, and I held her the way I have since the day we brought her home. "We're the realest family I know," I told her. "You understand me?" She thought it over with that serious little face of hers. "Yeah," she said. "Okay." Then she hopped down and went right back to her poster board. "Yeah, okay." 17 years of silence. 17 years of stepping back. Writing checks. Keeping the peace. Staying in the background of a family that never once bothered to look closely enough to see who was actually holding it all up. And in the end, it took one slap, one smile, and the calm, unhurried decision of a man who finally stopped protecting the wrong people. I'm Kyle Weber, 49 years old. I live in Steiner Ranch, Austin, Texas. And everyone under my roof carries my name because they chose to, and I chose them right back. That's what a real father does. If you enjoyed this one, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. See you in the next one.